Indiana, 1969. A conservative Methodist college, DePauw University. Excerpts from President William E. Kerstedter's address on racism and the university.
But there are limits to changes that particular institutions of higher learning can make, and each one must develop its own nature and history. But there are some things I feel sure that DePauw will always be committed to. And I personally really wouldn't myself come to DePauw if I didn't think that in these fundamentals it had something of immense worth as a kind of higher education.
The university is a key institution in the way the system in this country operates. And that if you want to attack imperialism, the military, the draft, the kind of things that we're doing in Vietnam, and the kinds of things very similar that we're doing to our people in the cities, the kind of empty lives that the system makes us lead, then you got to realize that the university is a key institution, and that one place that we can work and that we feel very at home working in is the university.
My point is, I'm not trying to help the black students. I'm not trying to help them in their struggle, because I within my own race field we have a greater struggle than they do, because we have no excitement. We have people who are rather apathetic about it, or who don't know, who've been raised in white suburbs, and the problem isn't theirs.
The one definitive thing that I can say about this as an individual is that I speak for no one other than myself. I express ideas that students may accept or they may not accept, and I don't totally recognize to be real myself. All I'm doing is expressing ideas, and they aren't necessarily representative. And this is very often the fault that news media makes.
Do you think that we've gone too conservative now, Tom?
I definitely feel we've gone too conservative.
Why? How?
But I also feel that a radical reform movement at DePauw cannot possibly work.
Steve Kobolewski, Laurie Duncan, Tom Fulton, Tom Dodd. 4 students out of many trying to change DePauw, trying to bend it to suit their conceptions of what a university ought to be. Out of many possible issues, they are concerned with racism. DePauw has only 24 Negroes out of 2,200 students. The problem is how to best raise this issue. The tactic under discussion is a confrontation with the president during a planned address he is to give on the religious foundations of the university.
Questions from the floor come in to keep him on the point.
What if he refuses to have recognized? What if he says, well, I'm going to speak to this, and I'm sorry, I can't answer questions now. Well, again, like, Dan was saying, you just said, well, we can't accept that. Now, come on, man, speak to the problem. Dangerous. Why? Because it's alienated the students. You start to look like a Hitler. You've got to explain to him and to the rest of the people there, which is your real object, exactly how he's being slippery.
That's how he's being really got to know what's going on.
But if he does pull that, and he refuses to recognize people from the floor, then we have to leave. Okay. So I think it's got to be very clear, though, and made clear to the people there that it is because he's not speaking to the issue in the way which we want him to that we're leaving him. We're not leaving just to be arbitrary, but he gives us no choice.
And leaving is not our goal in this. Getting him to speak to us is the real goal.
All involved agreed to confront the president in chapel to force him to speak to the issue. Some did not agree to exactly what the issue should be. A small group of radicals, including Tom Dodd, drew up a list of 8 demands, one of which was racism. Steve Kovalevsky and Laurie Duncan, in a small, more established organization, advanced racism as the sole issue. After considerable haggling, Dodd's approach was dropped in favor of the single issue, racism. Dodd reviews his position.
Well, like Thursday night, we came out of the meeting with a list of demands. But anyway, we had what I consider to be a fairly radical stand. The following Friday, the next day, things were compromised a bit, but still the main objective was to make a scene. And over the weekend, the main objective became, let's have a dialogue with Kirsten, which I personally consider, useless and futile when it comes down to making any academic reforms here.
There were new people at this meeting. Don't want to say that they're different people, because I think we share a common enemy, and therefore we're together. But there were new people there. They brought what that concerned them. That concerned us also, although individually, I'm sure, we could point out different things in their list of demands, which was thought through too carefully. Nevertheless, what they presented was close to the revolutionary program, and you almost have to commend them for their enthusiasm there. So it was like them coming in to an issue, and that's what the meeting was about. Now we had thought through beforehand, before the meeting had started, roughly what we wanted to see happen Wednesday, and we're using Wednesday as one stage in the progression of educating the campus on this issue.
Racism, as an issue, seemed to fit the students' needs best.
Everywhere a black person turns, there's white faces, something that to them right now means rejection and that they want to get away from. More black faculty members. This is entirely feasible, and I don't understand why we don't have any right now. Because Kerstetter says, well, because they need a PhD, and we have several professors right now who don't have their PhD. We have the money to offer the faculty. The faculty salaries at DePauw are higher than the national average, which is good. And so we have them.
Laurie discusses the Afro-American Society.
There's a great deal of dissension between them, from what I understand. And they've been formed 1 year. They haven't had a meeting since November. They don't have the numbers. They don't have any support whatsoever from their kind, or hardly any support from anybody else, to really be a viable force, a political force at all. They have even less to do than we do. And I don't want to say we're making it all nice because we're making up for what all we did in the last 150 years. What I am saying is that we have a duty to make DePauw a living situation that anyone could live here, and then go out and try to recruit. And anyone could live whether they're black or whether, it's me.
What we see as really necessary is building over a long period of time the organization of people who have a conscious awareness of the nature of the system. Eventually, we're going to be getting to the whole question of a critical university. But now the important thing to do is to build organization. That's what's lacking here. I think in the classical phrases, the objective conditions are really ripe. The contradictions are coming out as to what the university is.
But the group that Steve has sort of started and that we're working with now does not plan to stop now and to take. There's so many other things that we haven't tried yet. There was an example last year of Purdue. This was an Afro-American society. And they all came down, and I guess it was a really dramatic thing because someone I know was in the building at the same time. They came, and each person had a brick in their hand, and they did not make one sound. And they came down in front of the administration, put all these bricks up in a pile, and stood there and under silence for 1/2 of an hour and left. And I guess inside everything, was going up and up and up. Everybody was, what's happening here?
The radicals at San Francisco State marched around the campus, and they, ran up and down, but they couldn't get any support from anybody until the cops were brought on the campus. And that's a fact of, the idea that radical student organizations are really motivating forces for students is absurd. The one really motivating force for unified student action is outside force.
The way that the people in the third world have been approaching it is that they feel that they are left no choice but violence because of the nature of the system that they're fighting. American imperialism is an extremely violent phenomenon, and it cannot react in any kind of rational, peaceful way to people expressing their own opinions and their own views and carrying this stuff into practice. So the people in Vietnam, in Algeria, were forced to use violent means. And I think that same kind of analysis can be applied here. We would like to sit down and rationally decide the nature of our society. But there are some people who feel that it is in their interest to keep us down, to dominate us. So it will be the establishment which determines the means that we will use and not us.
So you think tomorrow's going to be a bomb, huh?
I don't think so. I think one way or the other, we've got a lot of things going for us. Sure, there are a lot of things against us, but we have, the psychological ramifications of a large number of people being there and wanting to see what's going on. I think that'll make her serious paranoid as all hell.
And how many of those millions of people really give a damn how many blacks are at the park?
Yeah, whether they care or not, the bodies are the thing that counts. And, look, man, he thinks of us as a bunch of, SDSers, communists, and we're ready to spring him up. I really think this. And this was pointed out to me by a couple of faculty members tonight, and I think we can play on it.
How far are you willing to go?
What do you mean, how far am I willing to go?
Well, you're not really willing to string them up.
Oh, certainly not. But I think, we have a psychological advantage. My point is we have, some advantages for tomorrow. You see, if we play it right, we'll have maybe 3 or 4 faculty members walking out with us tomorrow. And I've got some indication.
Close to the walkout?
Well, if we play it right.
Remember after Thursday night, when we were at least halfway liberal, well, Abraham guaranteed 5 faculty members to walk out on that stand, too.
Well,
something very interesting I told Tom. Has anyone else seen the graphic tonight? They pointed out that, about, just what I suspected would happen, that they just saw right through the whole thing and said, well, here's the old group of radicals back again, except this time they've put on the white man's burden and are going for goals for Negroes, which they really want for themselves.
That's right. Look, number one, I don't propose to speak for the black community at all. They can speak for themselves. But I do propose to speak for the university.
Why aren't they speaking for themselves?
What?
Why aren't they speaking?
Well, don't ask me. That's their fault. You go ask them.
I look at it this way. I've never been so insulted in my life when I was asked to come here as a token for the white liberals. I'd rather do call me a nigger than to call me as a token for the white race, for the white liberals. And I think it was, a dirt cheap tactic, to wait till the last minute to ask for our support.
We want to say, look, from now on, blacks talk for themselves. That's their bag. But we need a transition for everybody that's going to be. They're going to say, well, that's it, and it's all over. We have to have a transition from that issue.
The only reason we're here to blame anybody is because of the what fools that we've been made of, more or less.
I think we've all agreed that the race issue is just about dead as far as, you're concerned and the whites are concerned. And why not go from here?
If we can admit that we've been wrong and that we're trying to break it down, pick up the pieces and put it back together again, that we can't include you in it. And it doesn't seem to me that you should be unwilling to participate also.
Do something. Stop talking about it, as Ed was saying. Get off your asses and get moving.
The next morning, the chapel was packed. The president refused to answer questions from the floor, and approximately 2/3 of the students and faculty present walked out.
We've had a conversation with the president and Reverend Swanson. President Kerstetter is ready to comment on our proposals in a general way. He would rather not have conversation and dialogue from the floor right now. Therefore, we can have a public meeting where we can all gather again and speak only to that subject. Now, that can be tomorrow, Friday at 4 o'clock.
Meanwhile, in chapel, the president was addressing himself to the question of racism.
It always nevertheless comes as a kind of shock to me to find myself, because I'm the president of DePauw University, placed by the attitudes of some others in the position where it might be presumed from that attitude that I, for instance, am opposed to the enrichment and maximum opportunity for all Americans, regardless of race or creed or color. This is particularly shocking to me because many of you would not know it, but I myself was born and raised among such people, lived in such communities as a child, and only by a striking singular event, eventually, after I was out of high school 2 years, did I myself realize, even for the first time, that college was something that I could have.
I think it was successful as far as it went. It wasn't a confrontation, but then again, I don't know, what's your estimate of the people that walked out? Probably half the students walked out, and that was their own choice on what they wanted to do. So I felt that as individual decisions, students came to hear him speak on that, and if it wasn't going to be dialogue from the floor, they didn't want to stay and hear his speech. So the meeting tomorrow at 4 ought to be speaking directly to the question. I don't think we'll have any problem in creating a dialogue there and trying to put it against the wall. And I think that's what we want to do in the evening.
Putting the president up against the wall is not simple. Wednesday afternoon, the president handles questions from the floor.
Which question do they take up first?
How about why you don't
don't start forcing changes down here that would permit black students to come here and live here and lead a decent life, i.e. busting up fraternities and sororities so students could live there and enjoy themselves there.
You're asking why we don't, to use your colorful language, why we don't bust up fraternities and sororities, for instance, right? Is that one of the questions? Is that one of the questions?
Well, as long as you add the emphasis, why you're busting it up so that you can have if need be, a forced integration if anybody's want to live there anyway.
With all the, let me put it this way, I myself belong to a fraternity, but most of my life, since graduating from college, I've had almost nothing to do with it, and I've had the general attitude up until I came to DePauw that fraternities and sororities are of no particular value, not essential by any means to a college or a university. At DePauw, despite their imperfections, I have the impression that they have been decidedly constructive and creative.
Creative of racism.
I would say also that they inherited it, as all our institutions have, right? And it is true that some fraternities and sororities have invited people of other races to become members, and sometimes the person invited for his own reasons has chosen not to join.
I don't have as much of a question as I would like to make a statement. I'd like to point out that the nature of these questions is directed toward the psychological impact that you would have on this campus if you do what you say you are going to do. If you indeed do, for instance, say 5%, increase the percentage of students on this university 5% black, you will have 150 to 250 black students. You will not have the employment situation handled. All your janitors are white people. There are no black faculty members. If this is not handled in that situation, if the financial problem is not handled, and if the social regulations are not handled, I'm not saying that I speak with black students here. I'm saying that I can see what happened at San Francisco State. The problem was that the students were unsatisfied. They were militant. And the administration in that case did not make concessions or allow for a free exchange. Now that's what concerns me. I don't want to turn DePauw into a battleground. Now either you do what you say, you bring the percentage, you increase the percentage of blacks on this campus, and you don't make the reforms, then I'm saying you'll create a potential riot on this campus.
I started a joke which started the